what Rife discovered in this whole process is you can generate these frequencies and harmonics, and you can actually vary it. So one of the things that I found that was unique to Rife that was different to Lahosky with the multi-wave oscillator was he could generate unique sets of harmonics and frequencies. And the way in which he discovered it is um, he pulsed a carrier wave, and when you pulse a carrier wave, you generate harmonics and frequencies. And I like to compare it to music. So in music, if you have two different notes, you generate harmonies or harmonics. If I vary one of the notes, I generate unique sets of harmonics and frequencies. So with radio, you could do the same thing. So as I vary one of the frequencies, I'm literally generating hundreds of thousands of different harmonics and frequencies that span AM, FM, shortwave, long wave, UHF, VHF, all the way up to visible light. And even though hundreds of thousands sounds like a lot of frequencies and harmonics simultaneously, but the sea of literally quadrillions of frequencies, it's a spit in a bucket. So um, in nature, it requires, so we're always exposed to these frequencies and harmonics, as Jim alluded to, through lightning discharges. Well, we also have the lightning discharges on other planets and the sun outside our solar system. So everything is producing these lightning discharges, and each lightning discharge generates a unique set of hundreds of thousands of different harmonics and frequencies. In order to fill up that whole spectrum, you need the whole universe of spinning and to generate all these different harmonics and frequencies. But here on Earth, we can't do that. So with the technology that Rife discovered, by varying these pulse frequencies, you can begin to generate unique sets of hundreds of thousands of harmonics and frequencies. Nature does it by varying the cloud structures to generate a unique strike that generates the hundreds of thousands. But we applied technology to as I mentioned earlier, by changing these pulse frequencies, you generate these side bands of harmonics and frequencies that we can completely control, and they follow known mathematical principles. So when I pulse at a specific frequencies, it will generate that same set of harmonics and frequencies. And as I change it, it generates that same set. So it follows these known principles. And if you understand how atoms vibrates, how molecules vibrates, and how the nucleus is vibrating, now you can begin to transfer energy in it by generating literally these different hundreds of thousands of different harmonics and frequencies. So in our recipes or programs, what we're doing is we're varying these things. So you could target for a specific outcome. So if you're just slightly changing frequencies, you're just slightly changing the harmonics and frequencies. So over time, it's like these little clusters of harmonics and frequencies. And then we have other recipes that are just more of a general wellness, where we're just randomly generating these harmonics and frequencies very similar to nature. So with our recipes or programs, we're able to either make it to specific outcomes, or we could just do it for general wellness. So that was the feature of Rife that he brought into the equation. And then there's that visible light component, and light is life. And how does light generate their frequencies? So when you go outside, the most common question in the world for kids to ask their parents that they don't know is, what causes the blue in the sky? Well, the blues in the sky is all these different gases in the atmosphere that get excited to fluorescent, that releases these photons of light through the visible light spectrum. So what we're trying to do with our system is we're trying to generate that wide spectrum of frequencies and harmonics. So when you use the various gas tubes that we generate, we're generating more of that spectrum of frequencies in the visible light spectrum. So, as you know, you have these devices like the infrared or far infrared. You have these other devices like the helium, neon lasers that we see all these benefits of these gas tubes. And I thought, well, let's just start adding all these together. Nature just doesn't produce infrared or far infrared or just argon light, but they produce that full spectrum as a result of all the gases in the atmosphere. So we're trying to replicate that. So as we mentioned earlier, this whole picture is all about replicating what actually happens in nature. And we don't get that because we're inside and we have these, we're in a Faraday cage where we're blocking all that natural energy. And that's one of the things that, the basis of the biocharger is to restore that natural energy so that the cell can actually work properly.